Good evening, everyone. We're going to call to order the Utility Safety and Environment Committee meeting. We'd like to wish Jack Sarah a happy 21st birthday.
Thank you.
Item number 1 is the matter of amending 2018-174, which is an ordinance regarding the purchase of outside water meters. It was referred by Mr. Jesse. So, Mr. Jesse, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, through you. This issue came up with the new Four Seasons development on Bender Road, which is part of the 3rd Ward. And the bottom line is the folks out there all have sprinkler systems. They're expected to keep their lawns, very well attended. And they're also on rural water. So they're getting a double whammy. The rural water rates are considerably higher than the City of Elyria's water rates, and then the City of Elyria's sewer rates are fairly high. So it really became apparent about a month ago as the residents that have moved in, their sod was put in and they were beginning to water. We obviously had some very, very hot weather in July, so a lot of water was being used. And they had legitimate sticker shock when they started getting their bills of $700, $800, $900. And their water usage was going from a 3 or a 5, which is what you'd expect, to a 30 or a 35. For those of us in Elyria, we have the option of putting in a second meter. I just put in a second meter this spring, which I should have done 27 years ago, but for somebody that does a lot of outside watering, it makes a big difference. For the folks with the in-ground irrigation systems, they're paying for a service that they're not receiving because that water does not go through our sewer system, and so they're paying for something that is not necessary. And we first looked at amending the ordinance that said that they could not, if you were on rural water, you could not put in a second meter. And we discussed an alternative that is really much better. It's more cost effective for the residents. They don't have to go through the extra step of putting in an extra meter. But what we proposed is that we would take an average monthly usage during the months that the irrigation systems are not being used, and then take an average, whether it's a 3 or a 4 or 5 or a 6, whatever it is, based on an individual household. And then during the months where the irrigation systems are being used, then you see what the usage is. It's going to obviously be higher. It might be a 20, it might be 25, it might be 30, it might be 35. And in those particular instances, you would say, okay, this particular household has an average usage of a 4. And then during those months where the watering occurs, you would give them a credit for everything but a 4, so that they're still legitimately paying for their water. And the way we propose to write the ordinance that I think makes it very fair is that it would be if you're on rural water and you have an in-ground irrigation system. That way it can cover any future developments where the same scenario might be taking place. It's not penalizing the people in Elyria because they still have the option, if they want, to put in a second meter. So to me, it seems to be a very, very fair, uniformly administered procedure for people that fall under those two categories, rural water and an irrigation system. I know we've had a lot of conversations with Ms. Connor, and she's been very, very diligent in looking at solutions, even to help these folks get an appropriate refund for this summer, again, based on what we would guess their average usage would have been without using their irrigation system. We had first talked about, what I first proposed was taking an average from September through May and then giving a credit in June, July, and August. One of the residents out there who is a former landscaper and obviously very interested and knowledgeable about turf and irrigations, he said that there still are it's very common to be using the irrigation system in even April and May and September. So he just sent me a text and said, could we consider taking an average over 6 months and then giving that credit for the months of April, May, June, July, August, September. to me, it's still the same thing. We don't, it's not fair to charge somebody for sewer assessments when it's obvious the water's not going in the sewer. And I'd be interested in looking and expanding that to a 6 month. I think that that's still going to be very accurate. So there's the background and where we find ourselves right now. Happy birthday, Mr. Sarah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jesse. I'm sorry for that delay. Are there any questions for Mr. Jesse at all? Ms. Connors, would you like to weigh in? You don't have to, but if you have anything.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Yeah, we're doing some checking. The agencies that I've looked at that do these seasonal averaging, they've tended to do it over 3 months. We were looking at maybe a June through August, but I think we could be flexible. We're, just trying to develop how we're going to implement this because there is no history of an average for people before they were watering. And I know that the first few years of putting lawns in are very high. Normal watering doesn't use as much. So we're kind of in the exploratory stages to see how we can implement this right now.
Does this present any challenges to your billers?
No, I think I've talked to our software people, and there's a couple ways we can do it. I think the best way the first year is to go with, it's going to be kind of a manual averaging, so we can watch it to see how it's going to go. They can write a program for us to do that. Right now, there's 260 accounts that could be affected by this. Of the 260, I believe we have 22 of them that already have private meters because they're in some other locations. I believe over like in the Maslick area, and there's some off of East River, I think on Hope Court, where it's kind of spotty. So they're in a couple of our billing zones spread out. But I think it's doable. The New World, our software company, gave me 3 different ways of looking at it. Most of the people do all of their accounts seasonal averaging, where we just want a small group, so I think we have to go kind of in the other area and do it as an adjustment.
Mrs. Davis?
Through you, Madam Chair. So are you talking about one specific area? Because somebody going to say on the west side, hey, I could be watering my grass if it wasn't. So you're just looking at just one area or going to cause a problem for people elsewhere?
These are the people that they're in the city of Elyria, but don't have city of Elyria water.
They have rural water, Lorraine rural water.
And primarily the new development over by Chestnut Commons.
And so our meters are in their houses or?
No.
They're not on meters?
They're Lorraine rural water's meters, but they get their water from Elyria.
No, they get their water from rural water.
Right.
And then they send the reads to us and we bill for Elyria sewers.
And these people are paying for sewers
That they don't?
which they're not using
No.
because they're watering their grass outside. Ms. Deary?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. So the example you gave of people on the west side, if they're getting both their water and their sanitary sewer from Elyria, that person would have the option of installing a secondary meter that would monitor and track, say, their outside irrigation usage. So they would, essentially, the credit's already built in there. But if somebody is not on Elyria water, but is on our sanitary sewer, they're essentially stuck right now. because we as a city and utility is not in the position of measuring anything. We're getting the reads from the water company, in this case, Rural Water.
See, back in 2018, at the advice of Mrs. Zaworka, we said anyone on rural water could not get a second meter. So we're trying to amend that so that these people aren't paying so much money because the water is not going into the sewer. They're not using the sewer, shall I say. Mr. Jesse?
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. And just to clarify, because they are paying the sewer charge for the water that does go in the sewer.
That's why the bills are so high.
And this is just a way to have a very, very good estimate of during high watering months, what water is not being, not going through our sewer system, because we know what their average usage is. If they're month after month using a 3 or a 4, a 3 or a 4, a 3 or a 4, then all of a sudden they're using a 40, then it's really obvious. And so this way of the seasonal averaging, it accomplishes exactly the same thing as having a second meter, but it doesn't put the burden of paying for a second meter and paying to have it installed, and then we have to figure out how we're going to calculate that. That's still something that our department would have to do, because rural water will not install a second meter. So that's not even an option that those residents have that are on rural water.
So this is Madam Chair, if I may, is this primarily just for residential? So I guess is Chestnut Commons all on rural water over and through, or is that City of Elyria?
There are water, but there's an agreement that was established a while back on that, how they get a share of part of that water. We bill it.
Okay, and then potentially over there, is there roughly 400 homes that would be going over and through over at Four Seasons at
Right,
this particular time?
Right, we've got a small, 260 is about the average right now, but I think there's 2 or 3 more phases coming in.
Right, and then at that point, I think last night we had just kind of had a first reading for those properties that would be over on Indian Hollow. Is that potentially rural water there as well?
I'm not sure where those fall.
That would be off, what was potentially off of Indian Hollow, what's being considered.
Like Alco that's over there is rural water.
Yeah.
So some of those are, right.
Right.
So those potentially could be in this group too?
Okay. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Mr. Jesse?
That's okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, to address that, Mr. Stewart, that's why we did not want to write this to say residents of Four Seasons, because that would not be fair. To make it completely fair, the caveat is you're on rural water and you have an in-ground sprinkler system. So if you're on rural water and you're using your own hose and sprinkler, you don't qualify for that, because you're not going to use as much water as
Sure.
people who have an in-ground system. So to me, it makes it very, very fair across the board, because you've got these 2 qualifying factors you have to have: rural water, in-ground sprinkler system.
And I'd recommend we probably establish a registration form for the people, so they're attesting to the fact that they do have an in-ground sprinkler system. Because, I mean, somebody could fall through the cracks, because we've got other rural water people that may not be under those same guidelines as what these new homes have. I mean, that's something we should look at.
So I guess the question for the committee is, how many months do we want to do this for? Do we want to do an average of 3 months, say June, July, August, or for the credit? Or do we want to do 6 months? What is the pleasure of the committee? Mr. Oswald?
Through you, Madam Chair, whatever you make it, if it was 3 months or 6 months, but if I knew that I was getting a credit only for 3 months, I would be running my sprinkler system those 3 months, and I would hold off after that. So I don't think that for right now to go the 6 month. I mean, I think if we did 3 months, play it out, see how it works, and then those people knowing that it's June, July, August, those are the hard, hot times. And then after that, review it. I don't know if then down the road you can amend that. I don't know, but I think if the person knows that this is a time frame, then they can water the heck out of their yard. But now, is every home being built with those in it? Okay. That was my other question. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And it must be part of the homeowners association that the grass has to look a certain way? Okay, Mr. Jesse?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. They do have control over their own sprinkler systems. It's not like, the homeowners association turns them on and off. There is an expectation that they keep their lawns green, but these folks are going to want to do that.
Sure.
That's one of the appeals of living there. And I understand what you're saying, Mr. Oswald. I guess the only other thing I'm saying is if it's really clear that an individual over the 6 months where they're not using their sprinkler system, they're a 3 or a 4, a 3 or 4, a 5, a 4, a 3, and then all of a sudden, and maybe April's really dry or they need to use it more, and it jumps up to a 12, and then the next month it's a 25, and then you would see that, yeah, they were using their sprinkler system more than just 3 months, and the whole purpose is to not charge them a sewer fee when the water's not going in the sewer. I think it would be, I know it sounds kind of excessive, oh, well, let's only do 6 months of averaging, but I think we would see accurate numbers. I think you'd see very consistent readings for the 6 months, and then if you're in April and you still only have a 4, it just was a year where you didn't need to use it. I think it's a fair thing to do for them because, again, the bottom line is we don't want to charge them for water that doesn't go in the sewer. And it's just a matter of how do we calculate that. If they had a second meter, then in April you would read that. And if they used 20 units on their second sprinkler, you'd say, oh, well, you're not going to be charged sewer because it was your second meter. I'm not sure it's a big deal when you think about it. It's like if we can get a good average over 6 months, then we'll see what their usage is for the other 6 months. And if they don't use excessive water in April, they're not going to get any credit.
Mrs. Davis?
Through you, Madam Chair. So, can't we get a printout of what's been going on over there for the last 6 months? We should have, we can see and make a decision on where we look at it now, what they've had since a year, from January down to April, from April down to now, and see what they're being charged, and kind of make a decision on how much they've been using, because maybe April they started using the sprinkler. So I would like to see a printout or talk to someone to see, so we can say, hey, 3 months or 6 months.
Through you, Madam Chair, that's possible. Right now, what I'm seeing is a lot of these folks have moved in and started the sprinklers right away, so we don't know what their normal usage would be. That's, the kind of the...
I mean, did you have a couple, through you, Madam Chair, don't we have a couple of residents over there, or 3 residents that we can kind of look at? Or is all of them that new?
A lot of them are new. I can look to see. There are some that have been there for a while.
Okay.
I mean, we can see what we've got, definitely.
Mrs. Deary?
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. So to the committee, I think the main thing is that whatever is decided as far as this legislation, it's going to be a consistent and applied across the board. So inevitably, there's going to be somebody who doesn't fit the mold and is probably going to be less than thrilled. So, I mean, as Mr. Oswald said, as Mr. Jesse said, maybe one year April is unbelievably hot and August winds up being unseasonably cold. So if whatever time frame is chosen, August is included but April is not, then people aren't going to see the benefit. Whereas if you choose a 6-month window, say April, May, June, July, August, September, then you would see that. Likewise, what the legislation is going to have to include is how long of an average you want to see. in the discussions with Mr. Jacobs, Director Firestein, Mrs. Connor, we were looking at a year. Now, this is obviously development that's still evolving. So as was just discussed, for many of the people who lived out there, this was the first summer where they were putting their lawns in. So there was a very, very, very high usage. So when Mrs. Davis, you were asking, you know, to see what the average was, we don't necessarily have a great picture. We know there's going to be a lot of usage in those summers, but we don't necessarily know long-term. There's many people yet, for instance, if the legislation says to get a year's worth of an average, there's people out there that don't have that yet because they haven't lived there a year yet, or they haven't lived there for a year, or they haven't lived there long enough to even have that summer yet. Maybe they don't even have a lawn yet. You may have people who are moving in and they're going to start their lawn in October. If you do that, well, then if you say that the 6 months ends in September, you're going to have people that are not happy because of that, because they're going to be running their sprinkler system in October. Say we have a great October, that's great for lawn. So I know that's not necessarily answering your questions, but it's just something to be mindful of when we craft this.
Mr. Jesse?
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. There's really two issues right now. There's the issue of the long term over the next couple of years, and then there's the issue now of how to calculate some kind of fair refund for this summer without months and months of readings. I would propose that we would, for the people who are there now, you start in October and you've got 6 months. You can have October, November, December, January, February, March. And at the end of March, you look at those 6 months and you take an average usage for them. That's their figure for next summer. For people who are moving in before that, maybe you just have to look at it, you know, if they're there for 3 months, they're there in January, February, and March of 2021. Look at their usage. If it's 3, 3, 3, or 3, 4, 4, you have a good idea. And even if we rounded it up a little bit in the city's favor, just to not be giving away everything, they're still going to appreciate having a pretty significant credit when the hot weather comes in. Calculating a refund now is something else that we would take advice from Mrs. Connor and make a fair assessment. I know they will be appreciative of a refund from this summer. But like I said, we have people with bills of $800 or $900, which, I mean, imagine that.
Mr. Firestein, would you care to weigh in, or?
For the chair and members of the committee, everything that has been discussed so far is pretty representative of what was discussed at the meeting we had that Madam Chair Mitchell attended, and with input from Councilman Jesse as well. I think that this is a fair solution to a problem that is kind of unique. It provides a caveat to a group of people that can't get in the second meter. So everything here discussed has been fair and just trying to figure out the details. But I know I'm not providing much, but I wanted to just share that it is very representative of what was discussed before, and the idea that a lot of people can come together on a issue and find a solution quickly is what government's all about. But I give a lot of kudos to the committee here for tackling this and trying to find a good compromise and solution and moving this forward. So thank you.
Thank you. So I guess we're back to how do we want Mr. Sarah?
For you, I would recommend doing the 6 months, and I would do it May through October and then November through April. You don't have a ton of watering going on in the spring. You know, some stuff, a lot of stuff doesn't even get planted until after Mother's Day.
Right.
So I think that would give you a pretty accurate snapshot of daily uses versus watering usage.
Anyone else? So what I'm hearing is that we are going to offer the credit for 6 months, or take the average of 6 months from May to October. And we'll issue a credit for June, July, and August, and September. Did I just confuse you all? Mr. Sarah?
Correct. Through you, you would do the, reading, actually, what I have down is November all the way through, April. That would be their daily usage, average usage, and then the watering season would be from May through October.
Okay.
That would cover some fall watering if they want to establish things for the upcoming spring and winter.
Okay, thank you. So how do we write this on the? I apologize, we had to figure out how to write the legislation. So, if there are no other questions and/or Mr. Oswald?
Just real quick, Madam Chair, what Mark said is probably pretty right on track. The numbers don't lie, right? When you get them in and you're a 3 or 4, it's gonna be simple. So I think we're beating ourselves. What Jack Councilman Sarah just said is a great idea, and I think you've got it all wrapped up.
Thank you, that's what we're going with.
Well, we're getting the reads from Rural Water. They send those over to us.
Thank you, Ms. Connors. Thank you so much.
Sure, thank you.
So, anything else? Any comments, questions? Okay, so I'm gonna read the committee report. We have considered the matter of amending ordinance 2018-174 regarding the purchase of outside water meters. And we will take a monthly average November through April and issue credits for the months of May through October. Can I get a motion?
So moved?
Second.
Mr. Oswald, you have another question?
Yes, but that is the only thing billed.
That's the only thing that we're billing for is sewer. So I think that's redundant, but it's up to the law director.
I would spell it out.
Say that point.
Say on the city sewer bill.
Yeah, I would spell it out.
On city sewer bill. I apologize. We had to figure this out as we went along, and thank you guys for your input. Oh, gosh. I can't spell. Okay, let me read it again, please. We have considered the matter of amending ordinance 2018-174 regarding the purchase of outside water meters. Monthly average will be taken for the months of November through April. Credit months of May through October on the city's sewer bills. Okay. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you all so much for your work. That's why we have committees. Hold on a second, Mr. Jesse, don't leave. Do we want to consider this an emergency? Okay. Second concurs?
Yes.
Okay. And consider emergency legislation, okay. Yep, thank you. The next item on the agenda is the matter of authorizing the mayor to enter into and accept, let me start over, please. The next item on the agenda is the matter of authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement to accept the transfer of ownership on the water main of the new Northwood campus and fund requested upgrades. Engineer Snyder, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. During the design of the Northwood campus up there on Abbey Road, one of the requirements were the school needed to put in a water main from
I got it.
Abbey Road over to Rosalie. It was required to be looped as part of the project. During that, the city requested that the school actually upsize the main from an 8-inch to a 12-inch to better serve our own distribution system and collect our own distribution system. And it was under the understanding that we would pay the upsize charge. So it was it's a win-win for the city and for the schools. We would take over ownership of the main, and they would have better water pressure, and it would help the city in a whole. The total cost of the upsize was $35,000. Normally, to put a main in like that would probably cost you closer to $135,000. So I'd say we got a bargain as far as a new main over there that we can utilize in the future. And so today we're asking for council to accept the easements and the ownership of the new water main through the Northwood campus, and allow us to reimburse the schools for the upsize costs.
Are there any questions for Mr. Snyder? Ms. Davis?
Through you, Madam Chair. So help me to understand. So they want to transfer the ownership of the water main from them to us, or from the school system to the city?
Yes, the new water main was installed through the school property, down their roadway and through some parking lots and over to Rosalie, and we would take ownership of the new water main over there as part of this project, and reimburse them the $35,000. Essentially, we're going to get a new, you could say, distribution main over to that area, and it will help serve the whole Spring Valley area in the future, when we start doing some improvements over there to the water mains. So it will increase the flows throughout the city in those areas. It's just basically making our system better. So that's why we asked them to upsize the main for us. Ultimately, we're in the water business, so it's best that we control it and they don't.
Okay.
It's actually not uncommon that we have water mains that run through private property. That's all we're looking to do is accept it. They installed it for us. We actually inspected the entire thing. They installed it to our specifications. So everything is as if we built it.
Through you, Madam Chair. So they already installed it when they was building a new school?
Yes.
And so now, are they giving it back to us, or for, you said, what, $25,000?
35. They're just turning the ownership over to us finally. They finally gave us the description as far as the easement and the water main throughout, so that we can maintain it on their property. So that basically gives us the rights to go on their property and take care of any improvements that we need to with the water main and fix it.
So where would the 35 come from?
The water fund.
From the water?
Yes.
Account? Okay.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Snyder? If not, I'll read the committee report. We have considered the matter of authorizing the mayor to transfer ownership of the water main on Northwood campus and fund requested upgrades. We are authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement to accept the transfer of ownership of the water main and fund the requested upgrades. Can I get is this going to be emergency, Mr. Snyder?
The referral just said suspension.
It does not? Okay. So this will be a suspension of rules. Okay, can I get a motion, please?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The next item on the agenda is the matter of renumbering and recodification of ordinance 2011-208, ECO 939-417. Mrs. Deary, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So 2008 deals with situations where a resident has a problem with city water lines. And when the Chapter 939 was redone back several years ago, the codified version of this was repealed by the company that handles the codification process for the city, honestly for reasons unknown. Council did not indicate that, and I've gone through all the paperwork to verify this, did not indicate that it wanted its ordinance 2011-2008 to essentially be wiped out. This situation is similar to the sanitary sewer lateral program, where if a resident needs to have their lateral redone, they can have an assessment put on their property and have it basically paid off over a long time, so usually 10 years. So what I'm requesting is that council pass an ordinance basically reestablishing it in the codified ordinances. This was discovered when actually Mr. Schneider made a referral recently to have these assessments sent over to the county auditor. So that's essentially what I am requesting.
So the simple version of this is that we're just recodifying.
Yes, which I'm not entirely certain is an actual word, but for our purposes, recodifying is a word.
Recodifying sounds good.
Okay.
Are there any questions for Mrs. Deary? Seeing none, I'll read the committee report. We have considered the matter of renumbering and recodification of ordinance 2011-208, ECO 939.417, and this is an ordinance amending the above referenced ordinance and ECO as follows. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The next item on the agenda is the matter of authorizing the mayor to apply for and accept if offered a solid waste grant from Lorraine County Commissioners. And this was referred by Mayor Whitfield. He's not here. Who's taking this? Mr. Firestein, please.
Madam Chair, thank you. To members of the committee, so every year through the recycling grant, the Solid Waste District provides grants to each community for the number of tons of recycling that each community provides. And through those grants, each city receives funds. This year we received $47,190 allocated to the city of Elyria. We have to put a request in approved by the Solid Waste District of approved items, usually either of recycled content or something that gives back to the environment. So the list, I'm not sure what was provided to you in your packet, but what we are looking to spend this on would be signage for the cemetery, yard waste bags, paying for the community shredding day, which was held a few weeks ago, recycled benches, recycled planters, recycled picnic tables. One really cool item is a bike fix-it zone, which will help people either if they get a flat tire while they're riding their bike throughout the community. So we're going to try that out in a few areas as we try to make Elyria a little more bikeable. Community volunteer recycled T-shirts, some sculptures for more of like an art display for in a few areas, and then advertising, which is required by the grant for recycling purposes and those kind of items. So it's very standard on probably what has been done in the past, probably a little different, very much in line, and I believe that these items have been approved by Solid Waste, and we're just looking for the actual approval to enter that agreement and move forward with it. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Firestein. Are there any questions? Seeing none, I'll read the committee report. We have considered the matter of a solid waste grant, and we authorize the mayor to accept the solid waste grant from the Lorraine County Commissioners, and this will be an emergency. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the matter of authorizing the mayor to advertise for bids and award a contract for the East Park Playground Equipment Project. Mr. Schneider, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Part of the Parks Master Plan was to install a new playground equipment over at the East Park, similar to what we've done at the other sides of town. This is issue 6 funds. The estimate at this time is $150,000. It was included in the budget as part of the Parks issue 6 budget, and essentially we're just looking to go out for bid this year to get it started and get it built so that kids on the east side can play on a new playground set. And then we would ask that this would also be passed under suspension of the rules as well.
Are there any questions for Mr. Schneider? Mrs. Davis?
Through you, Madam Chair. This isn't going to interfere with the new school being built or in the way until the school is finished with all the construction going on over there?
It's going to be, it's definitely on Prospect Street. It's on the south side where there's currently just a parking lot only over there.
Oh, yeah.
There used to be the baseball fields over there in that area.
Mm-hmm.
That's the area we're looking to put it. It's the same area that I believe council has previously approved a new restroom facility and pavilion area. So it really will really make that whole area over there more usable and user-friendly, as well as the bike path that was recently improved in that area. It does connect over to that parking lot over there. Mm-hmm. So it's really going to make, I think, the park over on that side a lot more user-friendly and more people over there, hopefully.
Okay.
Mrs. Keys?
Through you, Madam Chair, will this replace the existing equipment that's there, or will it be in addition to what is there?
There really isn't any existing equipment in that area.
Not, okay, so it's going to be on the far south side.
Far south side, right by that, I can't remember if the parking lot over there is a gravel lot, but yeah, real close to University there.
Where the basketball hoops are?
Yeah, just south of the basketball hoops. So
Okay.
It's part of that field. It'll turn into more of the parks type setting.
And in addition to that, will that get started still this fall and hopefully be completed before November?
I can't promise it's going to be completed, but the plan is to get it started. I believe this project is going to be a design build as well, so we will go out for qualifications and then design. And so we might not have it totally constructed by the end of this year, but it will definitely be underway. That's the plan.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, I'll read the committee report. We have considered the matter of the East Park Playground Equipment Project, and this is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to advertise for bids and award a contract for the project, and this will be under suspension of rules. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item on the agenda is the matter of authorizing the mayor to advertise for bids and award a contract for the Lake Avenue Sanitary Sewer Extension project. Mr. Schneider, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This project is a project to extend the sanitary sewer at the corner of Griswold and Lake Avenue south to the new school, which is the new Westwood property, approximately 600 feet south. The intention of this is to install a gravity sewer so that the school can tie in with the gravity sewer. Currently, they're tied in to the city's infrastructure by a pump station. In return, the city, the school had agreed to enter the shed zone over there. So the city will now start collecting income tax as well for that. So, so part of that agreement was that the city extend the sewer down south to that property so that they could, as I said, eliminate their lift station. The township will participate as well. They have verbally agreed to pay 20% of the cost to extend the sewer, which is essentially their portion of the JED. We're still finalizing the agreement with that through the law director's office. So that will be coming to the council's for council's approval in the near future as well. Currently, the plans are at the EPA. We're waiting for the PTI to be approved so we can start this. The school is anxious to get this built as they have when they decommission their lift station over there, they're looking to put a parking lot over there, and this is kind of, they need this complete before they can do that work. So they're anxious for us to get started on this as well. So that's the reason why we've asked that this be passed under suspension of the rules and declared an emergency so that we can meet the timeline for the school and give them hopefully the ability to complete their project. I don't believe the Westwood campus is actually supposed to be up and running until late next year, but they still need to tie in the sewers over there, and I know they've had issues with their lift station that they have currently over there, so they didn't want to put a bunch of money into something they're just going to mothball.
Mr. Oswald?
Through you, Madam Chair, Mr. Snyder, is this going to be just for the school, or are the other houses down along Griswold going to tie into that?
At this time, it's just for the school, but it's not to say that they won't be able to tie in the future some areas, but the intention of this is just to get there so the school can complete and basically be up and running.
So are those homes on Griswold septic systems?
Well, we're not running down Griswold. We're going just down south on Lake Avenue. So we're only actually passing an old convenience store / paint store. I think there's an apartment complex there.
Okay.
And maybe one house. So there's not a lot of other customers we could pick up on the way.
I know where you are.
All right, thank you.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Snyder? If not, I'll read the committee report. We have considered the matter of a contract for the Lake Avenue Sanitary Sewer Project, and this is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to advertise for bids and award a contract for the Lake Avenue Sanitary Sewer Extension Project under suspension of rules and declare an emergency. Can I have a motion, please?
So move, Madam Chair.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 6 is going to be tabled until a later date. We're going to move it into pending items, and Mr. Snyder will let us know when he's ready to go with that. And seeing that there is no other business to come before this committee, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Good night, everyone. Thank you so much for your hard work.
7 things on it. Got 7 things on my agenda.